Chairman, banks with stronger capital positions maintain higher levels of lending over the course of economic cycles with those that have less capital on hand. I think the FDIC has noted that better capitalized banks compete favorably in the market and survive economic shocks without failing or without requiring bailouts. So I was going to ask a question to Mr. Allison here. I've been struck by a view which I think is rather myopic, a view from some of the critics of the Financial Choice Act who've suggested that the required higher capital levels will result in a sharp contraction in credit availability. Don't we also have to factor in the sharp reduction in compliance costs that will result from being freed from Basel III and freed from Dodd-Frank's endlessly complex mandates? Isn't that part of the equation here? And wouldn't it be that what's proposed by the chairman, wouldn't it be so that that would free up these significant resources that would be redirected to lending and redirected to job-creating activities? Absolutely.
I think today banks are focused on the wrong thing. They're focused on making government bureaucrats happy instead of investing in their business and in their customer base. So yeah, technically, okay, we have to raise more capital, but if that capital can be used productively to grow the economy, that's a good thing. It's kind of like, it's bad for banks to raise capital. That's a strange, a pretty strange argument to me. Today, banks aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing because they're trying to make regulators happy instead of making good loans.
And let me get back to this Basel III aspect of the question that I asked about. And I'll ask Mr. Purcell and Mr. Nussel. We've heard you and we've heard others say that the Basel III Accord was intended to apply only to large, complex, and internationally active institutions. However, the rules released by U.S. regulators would apply certain new capital rules to community banks and to large institutions alike. And you have the NCUA that has followed suit with its new risk-based rule. So is one-size-fits-all the right approach here?
It never has been the right approach, in that we make up a different part of the economy. I don't even know what some of the ones that are claimed to be banks are compared to what we do in Big Spring. You know, we don't worry about a lot of the leverages that go. We want to serve our community. And it isn't just the regulations, it's the customers being afraid of everything they have to go through to be treated like a criminal to apply for a loan. But Basel does not apply to the small banks. Well,
I want to jump in here on another question to Mr. Newell here, if I could, because as we just heard, community financial institutions are concerned about Basel III. But you raised something in your testimony that caught my eye. You said, Europe is moving ahead with Basel IV discussions, contemplating yet another change to the regulation of bank capital. From what you know of the proposal so far, what would the impact be on our U.S. institutions? Do we have a seat at this table? Should we have a seat at this table?
Sure. So I think the impact is very, very likely to be negative. These are actually a series of 11 separate proposals, all being hashed out in piecemeal fashion by the Basel Committee. We're still waiting to see the final details, but they seem very likely to raise the amount of capital, again, it has to be held against trading activities, seem very likely to raise the amount of capital that has to be held against credit card lines, home equity lines, financing lines to businesses. And again, these are, all very, very impactful, important proposals, and they frankly are getting no airtime here in the U.S. And we don't really have a clear sense of what position the U.S. regulators are going to take there, notwithstanding the fact that they would have very, very serious consequences here in the U.S.
Well, Mr. Chairman, to be frank, I'm concerned that while we sit here today discussing what the right capital standards should be for our U.S. financial institutions, foreign regulators are having similar discussions. They're having theirs behind closed doors. So what is to stop U.S. regulators from adopting these changes, as they've done with Basel III, these changes from Basel IV that's underway with little notice, with little opportunity for comment, with no opportunity for a cost-benefit analysis. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The